Hello, everyone. My name is Shane German, the music director at WYCE 88.1 FM in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hope you're doing well today. Today, we've got a very special guest in our virtual studio with John Craigie. Renowned for his eloquent Americana style, engaging live shows, and off the cuff, clever observations, John Craigie carries on the legacy of classic singer songwriters while blazing a trail of his own. The self described class clown, observational humorist, and folky singer of stories has been described as the love child of John Prine and comedian Mitch Hedberg with a vagabond troubadour edge. His latest release, Asterisk The Universe, sees his sound expanding into a cool, soulful groove with laid-back vibes while keeping his sense of humor and exquisite songwriting skills perfectly intact. Without further ado, please welcome to WYCE, John Craigie.
Don't ask me if I'm lonely, baby. You know I'm a lonely. If I wasn't lonely, then I wouldn't be talking to you. I'm trying to drink this poison and see if it'll kill me. I used to have immunity, but now I don't know what it'll do. So you don't know where I've been. I was just a canvas back then, but now I'm dripping with paint. I ain't old, baby, I'm brand new. Don't ask if I've been writing, baby. You know I ain't been writing. Hell, if I'd been writing, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'm trying to board this train wreck. I used to have a ticket on the best shit I ever written, honey. So I've been talking to you, so don't shut me up. It ain't like it was. I shed some layers. I ain't old, baby, I'm brand new. Yeah, don't ask me if I miss my bed. Why the hell would I miss my bed? This world ain't got a lot of beds, and I don't mind trying them all. Some are full of sadness, and some ain't got no blankets, but some are like heaven, honey, more than I could ever pull. Yes, I've been rambling long, and I keep on rolling on. That old cocoon is dead and gone. I ain't old, baby, I'm brand new. Ooh, ooh. I ain't old, baby, I'm brand new. Ooh, ooh. I ain't old, baby, I'm brand new.
Don't Ask from the new album Asterisk The Universe. John Craigie virtually live in our WYCE studio. How you
I'm
doing?
good. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Congratulations on a great new record.
Thank you so much.
It's really a wonderful. It's got just a nice groove to it. It's got so much. I don't know. I want like flavor and rhythms going on. You've got some great people working on it as well. Before we get started on the album, though, you're joining us from Portland. I want to ask you just personally, how are things going in that city right now?
Yeah, you know, it's okay. It's crazy. What we're seeing on the media is a very specifick part of town. So most of town is very sleepy and quiet, and you know, Portland is kind of divided by that Willamette River. So the east side is a lot more neighborhood feeling, not very city feeling, you know. So where I live, it feels very quiet and sleepy, like it's been since March. But downtown, you know, where the action is and where the protests are happening, I've been down there a few times, and I'll actually close out with a song I wrote about my experience there. But you know, that's where it's happening, and I think you know, our governor has been working really hard to get these feds out. So I'm hearing that they're retreating but it's still really messy, as you can see.
This, we've got a lot of our favorite artists here at WYCE have released in the past, few months really incredible albums, and unfortunately, due to the pandemic, are not able to do their usual thing, which is to go out and tour and promote the record and get in their vans and engage with their audiences in person. How are you holding up as a musician, just kind of forced into this new reality?
Yeah, it's weird for me. I think I've been saying this a lot, in the interviews, that it's a weird thing to complain about because there's a lot of hardships happening out there, and so I'd hate to trivialize that. But
Right.
on a personal level, yeah, it's challenging just because I think a lot of us musicians, especially the ones who tour a lot, we put a lot of our self worth, we put a lot of our self purpose in that, and to not have that, I think it could make anyone question kind of what are they doing with their lives. So I do the best I can from here, and in fact, it's nice having a record out. I really am grateful for that because it's something to talk about. It's something to give to the listeners, something to engage them with, and I'm going to start recording a new one soon. Just because I'm very inspired by that. But yeah, it's hard. It's really tough.
Yeah. Now you originally from California, the Santa Cruz. You went to UC Santa Cruz for college,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely.
you're really a California guy. Uh, you majored in math,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
I find interesting. How did you move from being a math major, kind of into your music career? What was that switch for you?
Well, for me, I was a musician first, not a very good one, but I was. That was the heart of my passion. I joke about this and people don't believe me, but it is true that at that time Santa Cruz was a not to discredit it, but it was an easy school, and the math program that I experienced was pretty metaphysical, was pretty like uh, philosophical, and so it was actually very enlightening and entertaining to take those classes. It wasn't something that was really challenging like my intellect at the time. So music was always the dream and the goal, but I didn't like the way music was taught to a certain extent. I didn't like the academic approach to music, especially for what I was trying to do.
Hmm.
So my goal was to to stay in college because I really liked being there, get a degree just in case, and then but really spend my time in Santa Cruz learning from other musicians. There's a radio station there called K-Pig that was a great Americana station that was really playing a lot of stuff that I'd never heard before. Greg Brown, Todd Snyder, John Prine, Loudon Wainwright, Arlo Guthrie. So I was learning outside of school as much as I could. So by the time I got out, I was ready to attempt, the music life.
Now you incorporate your live shows. You're a funny guy. You incorporate kind of comedy in a way. You've also stated that you've got influence. Stand-up comedians are a huge influence on you, like Mitch Hedberg, Steve Martin, George Carlin. Did
Yeah.
you grow up listening to comedy records?
Huge, yeah.
Hmm.
I was a comedian fan very early on.
Hmm.
I grew up watching Cosby Show, Seinfeld, all those. I feel like in the late '80s, early '90s, it was very common for a sitcom to be a stand-up comic, and they would just build a show around them. So through that, I would find, with Roseanne, even like Home Improvement, it's like Full House. These guys were
Yeah.
comedians. So I didn't have cable growing up, but I would digest it when I could, whether it was going to a friend's house, watching Comedy Central, going to record store, getting like an old George Carlin or Steve Martin record, and then watching a lot of movies and watching a lot of SNL. I always liked when a comedian was on SNL and they would do like a monologue to
Hmm.
introduce that. Seinfeld was a huge influence, just watching the little interspersed, monologues and bits that he would do. So that was big for me. Yeah.
I used to listen to comedy albums too. I remember there was a Joan Rivers vinyl record that my mom had. She also had like a Whoopi Goldberg live on Broadway. It was like a one woman show, like before she became a huge movie star. But like,
Yeah.
and I used to memorize all of the like from front to back, the entire bits. And I was always the new kid in school because my dad was in the service, so we moved a lot. So I would use jokes and comedy, but I would steal from these guys,
Yeah,
and I would
yeah,
just verbatim just repeat what I'm hearing on these old comedy records. And that was how I made friends, because I was I'd be the class clown, or uh, so comedy is huge, and I still love comedy, and
yeah.
it's not an easy art form at all. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm grateful to not have to rely on that. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah, it would be very hard.
But you're able to take observations and kind of and bring in humor to your songwriting, and I think a lot of that stems from your love of comedy.
Yeah, a musician has the privilege, the benefit of, it's not necessarily like known as a funny art form. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Music is usually looked on as serious and
Mhm.
emotional, and so a musician has this sort of like advantage where we've all been to shows where the musician says something that's really not that funny, but everyone laughs just because it's like a good tension breaker.
Mhm.
I noticed that early on. I remember seeing, I think it was Bob Dylan, like at the Hollywood Bowl when I was a teenager, and he's not, known for his talking, and he made a few like very bad, like dad joke kind of things delivered horribly, and the crowd like lost their mind. And I remember thinking like, okay, I could do that, like, and so it kind of, people sometimes say that they'll come to a show, they'll be like, you could be a stand-up comic, and that's a whole nother art form that is beyond my scope. It's very, very scary.
It is, yeah. There's two things that scare me half to death, and that would be stand-up comedy or Shakespeare.
Oh yeah.
Either one of those two things, I might challenge myself at one time or another, but Shakespeare and stand-up comedy, brutal.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about the new album. It is a great record, Asterisk The Universe, which is out now. I was looking at the players on it, and it's got such a nice groove to it. And I noticed that you've got somebody, you got Lorenzo from the California Honey Drops on this record,
Oh
and
yeah.
they are a fantastic band. I think they're out of San Francisco, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And their last record that they put out, Call It Home, it was like a 2 CD.
Yeah. So good.
It was so good. And we played
Yeah.
it here at the station, and the programmers just like lost their minds over it. So when
Yeah.
I'm like looking at your liner notes, I'm like, and looking to see who's playing on this, you've also got Nico from Shook Twins on here. Talk to me about the recording of this record.
Yeah, I did it in the style that I like, which is that I, secured a house in Sonoma County, California. Had my good friend and trusted engineer Bart Budwig come down with all the gear, and we basically turned the house into a studio. And and then we just had the crew, friends, and these great musicians that I'm lucky to call friends, and got them all together in the living room. And the reason I like that is because then you lose this sort of mental trip of that you're in a studio and people are, my favorite moments in life and in music are those after parties in the living room when everyone's just playing music together, feeding off of each other, and not really, there's no stakes, and I know that those moments are the greatest. So when I make a record, I try my best to create that, and you get those moments. You lose your realization of where you are, and that's always what I'm shooting for.
There's great little moments, just like even in the track listing, like the recording is still going, but you can hear you guys like getting ready or warming
Yeah,
up or laughing, so it sounds real organic. It's not like, it doesn't sound like it's all computerized and like boom boom boom. There's a loose feeling, and you can feel that looseness from all the musicians on
yeah,
there, and those great little moments where you hear the laughing, or the banter back and forth going on before the song starts or whatever. It just makes it really intimate and homey, and it's a really, really wonderful record. It really is.
yeah.
um it's easy to compare you to our friend, friend of the station, Todd Snyder, or John
Yeah.
Prine. It's easy for that, but what I'm hearing on this record is a lot of like soul stuff, almost like Bill Withers or
Yeah.
Shuggy Otis comes to mind. It's just got a nice groove. What were you listening to? You can definitely hear those influences on this record. What were you kind of listening to prior to going in to throw down these tracks?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for saying that. I think the bedrock of my songwriting and my essence, is inspired by those guys, the Prines, the Snyders, the Wainwrights, the Guthries. But when I make a record, yeah, I'm always trying to shoot for something outside of my comfort zone and something that's a little different. Yeah, at that time I was listening to, or I always am, but yeah, Withers, J.J. Cale, Nina Simone, Shuggy for sure. Uh, I was just really excited about people who are songwriters who can really throw that nice backbeat in there. Um, and yeah, a lot of soul artists, Ann Peebles and Al Green, and yeah, those people who are telling stories with this cool groove. So that was a big part of it. And I was listening to a lot of sample based hip hop too at the time. People like Common, The
Mm-hmm.
Roots, Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, kind of thing. So
It's just got a nice groove to it, and it's no wonder because you can hear these influences, and then with the stellar group of musicians you've got playing behind you, it's like you can't help but like nod your head to it and just kind of drive with it. It's great. Um, the song "Climb Up," I read that it's kind of you're kind of delivering an homage to activists like AOC and Greta Thunberg. Talk to me about "Climb Up."
yeah, that was something. That's one of the older songs on the record, in the sense that I had come up with that chorus and that notion early on. Yeah, really, I get excited about all these forms, activism on all levels, and there's that level that that Greta and AOC and these people who are just that much more intelligent and that much more prepared and experienced to enter into that world, which is something that like myself as a musician, knows that realm is a little out of my scope. I'm really grateful for people who can be that well versed and take on the establishment from that level. You know what I mean? And it matters too to have all of us down on the ground level making noise, but you get somebody like that up in the house. That's so cool to me.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
kind of yeah.
Yeah, the lyric in that song is "You got to climb up if you want to bring him down."
Yeah.
It's another great song. Another song that I really, really like on this album is "Part Wolf." Um, you say, "I got that American meanness." Talk to me about "Part Wolf." That's another great song.
Thank you. Yeah, that was inspired by my more recent European travels, specifically to the UK, and you really get a sense of. I always joke on stage that when you travel abroad, you get a mixture of American pride and shame. You have this sort of embarrassment of
Mm-hmm.
maybe who your president is, or an embarrassment of maybe your lack of healthcare or something. But then there's some moments where you'll go to a country where everyone's just really passive, and maybe the laws are kind of whack there, and maybe their taxes are really high, and maybe their like justice system is a little strange, and you're like, man, why do you guys stand for this? And then they're just kind of like, eh. And so it makes you aware that as Americans, we have this rebellious spirit, which is just rooted in everything. So much of this country, both good and bad, comes from a rebellious spirit, a don't take no shit kind of spirit. And so and I think that's something that's really amazing about this country, is like, this country is slavery. It's also the civil rights. It's also, it's also like the battle against and the good. And so we have such a history of that. And so I am always trying to get everyone to sort of tap into that part of us in order to right these wrongs. Because a lot of people, that I meet nowadays, they're upset, but they don't really know what to do, or they're not really sure how to. But it's in there from our ancestors to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Asterisk The Universe is out now, available everywhere. We've got it here. We added it to our WYCE music library. The programmers love it. Our listeners love it here in Grand Rapids. So it's certainly an album that you want to check out. Now, you did do some B-sides, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
You kind of released some B-sides to go with a few of the singles. You did Flaming Lips. You also did Nina Simone to Love Somebody, which is a great version of that song too. So not only is the full album available, there are accompanying B-sides that go to selected singles to the album. The cover artwork is also giving me like Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass vibes too, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Do you mind if we hear one more song from you?
Yeah. I was hoping to close out with a new one that was just written this month, based off of my experiences in marching with the people here in Portland, and also just going down to the scene there. And I do think that the media was definitely portraying it as more of a violence on both sides. And what I saw was more of just my town trying to have their voice being heard. And so this song actually doesn't have a name yet. I just wrote it. But yeah, I hope you like it. It goes like this. And I'm sorry that I didn't take any pictures, but I misplaced my phone at some point that day. Everybody was wearing masks and bandanas over their faces like some old Western play, to protect from the tear gas, protect from the virus, and remain anonymous as we meet our way. And I'm sorry that I didn't take any pictures, but my battery died at some point that day. We were marching up Highway 5, we were 4 lanes wide, we were screaming out his name. Oh, 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 oh. And on the sidelines, I was talking with some Christian about which lives matter and all that fun shit. You know, just casual. Talking with some Christian, telling him Jesus wasn't Caucasian, watching him deal with it. Oh, 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 oh. And I'm sorry that I didn't take any pictures, but I left my phone behind so they couldn't trace where I was. I was warned about the violence, but tired of being silent, so I headed downtown to the heartbeat of it all. And I saw veterans and mothers linking arms with one another, fathers with leaf blowers to push the smoke away, and the children on the sidewalk painting with colored chalk the rebellion of the ancestors rolling through our veins. Oh, 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 oh. So I'm sorry that I didn't take any pictures, but I owe you some stories when I come to you next time. I'll tell you what I've heard and sing to you what I've learned from the worst and most important summer of my life. Oh, oh, oh.
Yeah, thank you, John Craigie. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and best of luck to you. And do keep us in mind for any future recordings. We really love what you're doing.
Yeah, man. Thanks. You too.